symmetrical in shape. And when the developer came through and installed the roads around it and the houses, he came up with a bulldozer and flattened it and put a water tower where you are now standing now. Thomas Schreiber got the water tower after it went out of use, got it torn down, and about 3 years ago we were able to clear the top and install the replica artillery piece, the fencing, and make this much more presentable. On December 16, 1864, you have the same view, absent the buildings, as the Confederate troops did. There was fighting here on the night of the 15th, and General Hood with his staff came up here to watch the battle unfold around him through Green Hills, 100 Oaks, and the wild Confederate troop movement in the defeat of December 15th. Ector's Texas Brigade was put up on this hill by General Hood late in the afternoon, and he looked at the men and he said, "Men, I want you to hold this hill at all hazards." And the Texans said, "We will do it, General." And during the night of the 15th, they did exactly that. There was an attack from the west, which was repulsed, and the Confederates got up here about 9:30 at night, and the engineers came along and told them where to dig the trenches. There were very few tools. This is a rocky hill, and we had right behind us Tyler's Tennessee and Georgia Brigade, Finley's Florida Brigade, and the Confederates. When the sun came up, you could see the line running all the way to Interstate 65, and you could see the Army in blue as far as you could see on the hills to my left and in front of me. About 9:30 a.m. Or earlier, the Confederates realized that they had made a terrible engineering blunder, and they had built the earthworks not on the military crest of the hill, but on the crest of the hill. So when they woke up, they realized that they couldn't see down the hill to shoot at the army that would be attacking. This was a fatal and disastrous blunder. The earthworks were probably 4 or 5 feet tall. Some of it was just rock. They would put logs up in front of them, and the hill became a liability rather than an asset. This hill took over 1,500 rounds of artillery fire in a 5-hour period on December 16, 1864. From behind us, the hill just north, and a federal battery across from the old Burton School, now Lipscomb Elementary on Granny White Pike. The artillery fire was so precise that you couldn't even put your head up above the earthworks or it would get shot off by a sniper or the artillery fire. They tried to blast this entire hill into oblivion, and they were really successful in doing that. During the 16th, the weather was a little foggy, a little misty, but it was about 50 degrees. It had been much colder earlier, and the Confederates up here knew that they were in a really bad position, but nothing was happening really on this side of the battlefield other than the Union cavalry got off their horses and got on the hills behind us. So the Confederates that were up here could see Union cavalry behind them, Union troops to their left, and Union troops to the center, and it was like they were getting closed in. About 3:30 in the afternoon, Brigadier General John MacArthur was sitting on a log over here off Lone Oak with his binoculars looking at this hill. He was angry because the United States Army had not taken this hill during the day. There had been vicious fighting over on Franklin Road, but very little was happening here. And he, without orders, decided to attack this hill. The Confederates were in such bad position, and if you read the diaries, they would occasionally they would be hiding behind the earthworks. They would send a man crawling over to look down the hill, and they would ask for a report. And he would come back and say, "You know, I can't see anything because there's so many Yankees down there." All bad news. About 4:15, after a 5-hour artillery barrage, MacArthur ordered the charge basically almost from due north. And his Minnesotans came, fixed their bayonets, and without saying a word, came up the hill in droves. The Confederates, when they got to the crest of the hill where they could actually see, shot one or two times at them, and then the Confederates got their guns and began swinging them like baseball bats. It was hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, bayonet, and the brigade of Finley's Floridians broke. They were the first brigade to break. They threw down their guns and started running. And when they threw down their guns, Tyler's brigade, who was over here on this side of the hill, was captured, and the entire Confederate army was in a wild disorder that had never happened during the Civil War. Up here at the time were two men of fame. One was Brigadier General Thomas Benton Smith, for which the road below us is named. He was a young man in his 30s, and he was captured on this hill, and he was, as a prisoner of war, was marched down to Granny White Pike, where Colonel McMillan from the United States Army hit him over the head 3 times with a sword. He was marched into Nashville with his brains oozing out. They did not think he would die. He asked for, he said, "I want the rights of a prisoner of war." He was still struck, and he was one of the oldest living Confederate generals, in that he lived from 1864, from the time of his injuries, and died in 1923 at the insane asylum where Dell Computer is now on Murfreesboro Road. An interesting thing in there, even though he was mentally, he was in the insane asylum, he did run for Congress. I guess that's what people do. And was almost elected, but Benton Smith Road below us is named for him. Lieutenant Colonel William Shy, age 26, from Franklin, was in command of many troops up here, and Colonel Shy was killed, shot by a Federal, probably at 1 to 3 feet, bullet going above his right eye, and he was taken down to the Compton house and laid, it was a field hospital, and was put out on the balcony. An interesting thing about Colonel Shy was that his family came to get him, and he was buried out on Del Rio Pike in Franklin. And in 1977, the owner of the house called the police and said, "Something's happened back here at Colonel Shy's grave." The police came in, Dr. Bass from the University of Tennessee came in, and they found a body pulled out of the coffin. Dr. Bass and the police announced that it was a murder scene, and whoever they found had been dead 6 to 9 months. Only after further investigation did Dr. Bass at the University of Tennessee decide that he had missed the cause of death by 110 years, and it was actually Colonel Shy. And from that, Dr. Bass started the body farm at the University of Tennessee, which investigates, and they learn how we decay when we're gone. So Colonel Shy was killed here, and for his valor, this hill was changed by Nashvillians from Compton's Hill to Shy's Hill. There were, where you are standing today, 1,563 men captured where we are here. The entire division almost was utterly wiped out on this hill. A number of killed in action, a number of wounded, and when everybody began to run, there was only one place to run, because the Union Army line went all the way past I-65, and there was Granny White Pike was blocked by the Federal Cavalry, so everybody began running toward Franklin Road. Most of them from here made the gap, which is present-day Lakeview Drive off of Overton Lee, and retreated down through the Radnor Lake property. Those that didn't make that gap tried to make it over to Franklin Road, so as everybody was running in wild haste to the southeast, the Federal line was closing from my left going south, so the farther you ran, the closer you got to the Federal Army. There was intensive fighting all through these subdivisions as far as you can see, up into the hills, across the Radnor Lake property, out by Richland Country Club, which went till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then the Federal armies encamped all through here, and had you been standing where we are on the night of December 16th, 1864, you would have had many dead up here, wounded still, and as far as you could see, there would have been Union campfires dotting the subdivisions below us. There were trees up here at the time. Almost all the firewood from Interstate 440 into Nashville, there was virtually not a tree standing where the Union Army had destroyed our natural resources coming into Nashville. But there was timber up here at the time. The hills behind us had a lot heavier timber on it. I love to come up here and have been doing so since 1965. I grew up here. I still live here. And ladies and gentlemen, time stands still on this hill. Life comes and goes. People live and die. Subdivisions come. Houses are built. Houses are destroyed. Nothing ever changes where you are. This is owned by the Tennessee Historical Society. Our group has a long-term lease on it, and this will hopefully be protected for future Americans and generations as long as America is standing. With very little money and virtually no financial help from the neighborhood, a dedicated group of Nashvillians who, some are young and some are old, volunteer their time, their guts, their money, their efforts, and we come up here and protect this place where all of America can enjoy. So with that, welcome, enjoy this. It is one of Nashville's treasures. It is open to the public 365 days a year. We never close. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take it and walk around. You can see the earthworks that go south off of this hill all the way over to the next hill, and enjoy. That's what we have this for.